They say that a crisis brings out the best and worst in people, which is something we are seeing right now. I have three examples I want to show you, all involving intellectual property. In the first one, Interpol has arrested 121 criminals in 90 countries who have been taking advantage of this crisis to sell fake medical products. They've confiscated a large number of fake face masks and, even worse, counterfeit medication. Imagine that you have bought medication and now more than ever you are relying on it to make you better. And you find out that it doesn't work because it's fake, or worse still, it poisons you. That's what these people have done. In the second example, this story is a little bit convoluted because it involves unethical behavior piled on top of an older scam. You may remember a company called Theranos, which claimed to have a blood testing technology that was superior to everything else on the market. It just produced results really, really quickly. Well, Theranos raised hundreds of millions of dollars, had high-profile generals and politicians sitting on its board, and its founder became a celebrity in her own right. She became known for her black turtlenecks, copying the Steve Jobs look. And then it all came crashing down. The technology was exposed as being faked, and the founders charged with fraud. From the shell of Theranos, some of its patents were sold to the Fortress Investment Group. Fortress has been accused of being a patent troll. Now, what's a patent troll? A patent troll is a company that acquires patents and then just sits and waits for others to use the technology covered by those patents. It then threatens litigation, hoping that it'll be paid money just to go away. Apple and Intel have actually sued Fortress in November 2019, accusing it of trolling behavior. In early March, an otherwise unknown subsidiary of Fortress called Labrador Diagnostics went to court seeking a court order to stop a company from manufacturing test kits for COVID-19. They said that their patents had been infringed. When this was publicized, they obviously got a lot of negative attention from the media and were heavily criticized. And just over a week later, Labrador Diagnostics backed down, saying that they didn't realize the technology was being used to make COVID-19 tests. So what happens next? Well, they said they would grant a royalty-free license for COVID-19 related usage. But their litigation was still going ahead for the infringement of their patents for any non-COVID-19 purposes, which they said went back several years. What this means is that the manufacturer still has to spend time and money in court defending itself instead of putting all its resources into making vitally needed testing kits. In the third example, there was an Italian hospital that ran out of valves for a resuscitation machine in their intensive care unit. So they turned to their usual supplier of these valves, but the supplier said they couldn't produce them in time. Desperate, the hospital sent out a call for help in the local newspaper, asking for somebody with a 3D printer that might be able to make these valves. So there was an engineer that brought his printer to the hospital, and he asked the manufacturer for the 3D files so that he could print out the valves on his machine. The manufacturer refused to supply the 3D files. The engineer went ahead anyway, and in a few hours redesigned and printed out the missing valve, which went on to save many lives. Now, there are conflicting reports about this story. Some say that the manufacturer threatened to sue for patent infringement, and now the engineer is actually scared to help other hospitals who have been asking for these same valves. This has been denied, but I'm not sure that we know the full story. So why was the manufacturer unwilling to share the files if it couldn't supply the valves? Well, if it simply shared the files and the hospitals could all print the valves themselves, who was going to buy from them ever again? Not only that, but the valves were printed for 2 to 3 euros each. There's a report that says the list price for each valve was 10,000 euro. That's unlikely, it's a valve, but tellingly, nobody wants to say what the actual price is. So we just know it's substantially more than €3. I'm not going to condemn the manufacturer because it's not in an easy position. Release the files and you destroy your market, or withhold the files and deal with the PR backlash they're now facing. The thing that complicates this decision is that we're all facing an unprecedented crisis. Suddenly, what would have been just a normal business decision becomes a matter of life and death, not just of one person, but hundreds or thousands. And it's as difficult a decision as doctors are now facing with a shortage of ventilators. Which patient do you treat? They're all desperate and you don't have enough machines. So as this crisis unfolds, we're going to see it bring out the best and worst in humanity. And suddenly, intellectual property becomes life or death too.